Welcome back to Rooted in Our Ancestors' Dreams, the space where we honor those who came before us while shaping the legacy we want to leave behind. I'm Cara.
Hello, good people. Welcome back. I am Teresa, and today we're diving deep into a phrase we've all heard: the American dream. What does it mean? Who gets to define it? And is it even real anymore?
It's a term that's been used for decades, from political speeches to family dinner tables. But depending on who you ask, it's either a promise or a myth.
And if you're listening right now, think about it. What's your definition? Is it the house with the white picket fence, financial security, freedom to just be yourself?
The phrase American dream gained popularity during the Depression, especially after James Truslow Adams used it in his 1931 book, The Epic of America. He described it as a better, richer, and happier life for all, regardless of social class or birth.
Wow, that was huge for the time. But let's be real. Even though not everyone had access to that dream, for people of color, immigrants, indigenous communities, systemic barriers were real and often insurmountable.
Exactly. And yet, our ancestors still chased opportunity. Think about folks migrating from the rural South to northern cities during the Great Migration. They weren't just moving for jobs, they were moving for dignity, safety, and possibility.
In many immigrant families, the American dream wasn't about being rich. It was about giving the next generation a chance at education, stability, and respect. Fast forward to today. The cost of living is up, wages haven't kept pace, and student debt is at an all time high. For many, the American dream feels more like the American hustle.
Right. And the idea that hard work equals success leaves out the impact of systemic racism, generational wealth disparities, and the mental health toll of always grinding.
Plus, social media has shifted the dream. Now people see success as travel, luxury, and flexibility, not just owning a home or working one job for 30 years.
And there's also a growing movement to redefine success in terms of community, joy, and purpose, not just money. Teresa, if you had to define your American dream, what would it be? What did it look like, and what do you think your parents thought of when they thought of the American dream?
What does it look like, and how would I define the American dream? Well, Kara, you know that I am a naysayer when it comes to most things American. So, is the American dream a dream or is it a nightmare? Is it a stress reliever or is it a stress reducer? Now, for me, it's freedom. And that's financial freedom, emotional freedom, creative freedom, and freedom to be my authentic self without being considered a danger to others. It's the ability to make choices without fear of losing stability. And honestly, it's also about making sure that my family is safe and cared for.
That's almost in line with what we consider the American dream, this myth, this, opportunity for all. And I think what you're saying kind of aligns with what I thought was the American dream was the ability to be able to make choices without fear, to have freedom, to be able to vote, to just be able to live as a citizen and just go about my business, not being harassed, not being discriminated against, but having the same opportunity as anyone else, whether it be man, whether it be, white or, no matter what it is, just being able to have that opportunity and being able to take advantage of it. Now, currently thinking about the American dream, what I imagine it is just being able to be free and to be able to be authentically me. Like not having to necessarily struggle just to live and to be able to have opportunity. So I think depending on how you define it and from what lens, I think for me, the American dream is about creating legacy for not just my family, but for my community and being able to create those opportunities and being able to maintain those freedoms that were once guaranteed to us by the Constitution of the United States.
Well, my friend and my co host, that sounds really cute. And in some cases, it kind of sounds like a fairy tale. But to back up to your original question, you asked what I thought my ancestors' dreams were. And listening to you and replaying in my mind what I said, there are so many similarities between my ancestors' dreams and my dreams. Like, I just want, first and foremost, my family to be able to be free to be themselves. Some of my ancestors had to concern themselves with not just discrimination, but discrimination that could lead to death. And now, as I am the grandparent, great grandparent, and parent of Black males, I have similar concerns. I I want to create a legacy first and foremost for my children, but also for my community. And I believe that when my ancestors were going about their daily activities, it wasn't just for the immediate future, but somewhere on those plantations and probably even on some of those transatlantic voyages that were the result of somebody's American dream, um, in their minds, they wanted so much more for their children and their children's children. Their legacy in those moments, I believe, was just the hope that their children and their children's children would not have to do what they had to do at the time. So that's kind of what takes me back to the American dream being a dream for some and a nightmare for others, because you think about the parents that go to sleep at night worrying about whether or not their child is going to come home the way they left, or if they're going to get a phone call in the middle of the night. Parents who are working 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet, not wanting that to be their legacy for their children. I remember my mother being a factory worker. And when I decided college wasn't for me, I went to the factory that my mother was in. I worked at a factory that my brother worked for, my sister worked for. And then thinking to myself, I don't want this for my children. But then my son worked in a factory. So is the American dream still alive? I'm sure it's alive for some people, but for others, it's not a dream, it's a nightmare. But that's just my little spiel. Do you think the American dream is still alive, Carol?
I think with America being such a diverse place with so many freedoms that other countries, continents, whatever, um, does not afford, I think for those people migrating here, a simple life of quiet, no war, no being discriminated against, being able to, provide for your family. I think, yeah, that's what symbolizes the American dream to migrants. But I think if you are living in the US and you are, say, a woman who has lost the right to decide what to do with your body, if you are an African American or even a Hispanic American, and you don't have that feeling of safety and security to walk the streets without being rounded up, just due to the color of your skin or the, thought that maybe you're here not legally. I think it looks different. Not only that, but when we thought of the American dream, we thought of this, this family of a man and a woman and children and a white picket fence. That is no longer what comprises the family of today. You could, you have your LGBTQ couples, you have your single parents, you have multi-generational families. The white picket fence may just be like being able to live and provide for yourself. It's nothing, spectacular. It may not involve the college. It may just involve being able to work in a factory and earn a pension. It may not be the car. It may not be a house. You may want to live in an apartment. I think it comprises so many things to so many people. So, yeah, I think now the American dream seems more like a myth
Mm,
made from people who maybe had everything built in for them. They already had those freedoms, they already had those opportunities. But I think if you're looking in today's world, I think it shifted so differently, especially with immigration, politics, public assistance, all kinds of things that add into that. I think the idea of what the American dream has greatly shifted.
okay. Do you think, do we get to decide what it looks like for ourselves, or are we accepting the version that we've been sold by the popular culture?
I think we get to decide. I think at a very young age, for our listeners, I am 46. I am single and I don't have children. So I think at a very young age, I decided what my American dream looked like. I decided Kids probably weren't in the picture, didn't really care about marriage, didn't really, care to be ultra wealthy. I just wanted to make a good living. I just wanted to get by, wanted to be able to, you know, be able to give back to my mom the way she, sacrificed and put in for me. I knew I didn't want to be on public assistance. So I just kind of, went to school, worked hard, did what I have to do to just make it and get by. So I think I made the choice of what the American dream looked like, and I didn't let society guide me into doing that. Like buying into this idea of what you should be or who you should be.
That's interesting. There, there's about we'll say a decade and a half in our age difference. Um, you being the younger, and I think while you made the decision that you would do the things that you've done, being a boomer, I had a mom who was immigrant from the South, and she made some decisions about my life that formulated the American dream for me early. So my educational journey was different from most of my friends because we relocated from urban to suburban. So my community looked a lot different, probably when I was in third, fourth grade than it did up until that point. So I moved from a predominantly black community to a predominantly white community. My educational journey was filled with people who didn't look like me. And I remember one day having a conversation with my mother, telling her how difficult it was to be a sun kissed child amongst a sea of non melanated people. And the pain I saw on her face and heard in her voice when she said to me, I was doing the best that I could do. So she gave me her best based on her interpretation of what the American dream was. So the American dream was a good education, living in a safe community, and having opportunities that many of my other friends didn't have. But it came with its set of nightmares. So later in life, I formulated my American dream. But my American dream was formulated through the lens of that version of the American dream that I was reared in. And now in our new political climate, the American dream that I pass on to my children and grandchildren looks different than the one that was shared with me. So, white picket fence, yeah, yeah, it was get married, have children, have two cars, not living paycheck to paycheck. And, to some it looked like a lavish life. I think now they would call it bougie living. And unapologetically, yes, I am, because I was raised to be bougie. I was raised to be different. than those who looked like me. Um, yeah, yeah. So even in our conversations, the American dream looks different. So I can only imagine the diversity of American dreams that exist, and I'm really hoping that on this podcast we get to explore together some of those other American dreams, and I know, I believe that the American dream of my ancestors was more communal. Like they didn't just want to survive individually, but they wanted the community to be better. And I think about Black Wall Street, and I think about what a powerful force the Black community would be if we could reach back and get that piece of our American dream. The when I hear American dream, I think a lot of assimilation. But in assimilating, we can often lose so much of who we are individually. Like if there's a salad bar, but I don't want my tomatoes to taste like my cucumbers. And I don't want my romaine lettuce to taste like my iceberg lettuce. So we can all be on the salad bar, but we should be able to maintain our individuality. And I think if we do that, it's a threat to the American dream, because when I think American dream, I think cookie cutter. I think Stepford Wives. I think everybody dancing to the beat of the same drummer, and we know that doesn't work.
Interesting point. I definitely agree with that. And I think assimilation, I think that is something that is s- such a unique idea, especially if you think of the immigrants of today. Um, Interestingly enough, while, African Americans, we were brought here as slaves, we didn't retain a lot of that history. But if you look at a lot of the migrants who have come over here, particularly Hispanic Americans, Asians, even African, Caribbean, they have managed to maintain a lot of their culture, their language, their identity that sets them apart. But they've also managed to make that dream theirs. So they've managed to integrate themselves and to make it their own. And I think that says a lot. And I think even thinking back, back to the dream, my father and my mother's father were some of the first Black construction workers to come up from the Deep South to the North to make their way and make their businesses. And I'm quite sure when they were thinking about it, I think they just wanted something better for their families. I don't think there was any thought of being like ultra wealthy or anything like that. Think they just wanted to make a good living for their families and to be safe. Because in the South, there was still discrimination, Jim Crow, lynching, um, a lot of poverty too. So a lot of that stuff going on. And I think when they moved north, because everybody's ideal, of making it was to come to the north. So I don't think I even asked my mom what her dream was. I think she just wanted to have children that were healthy, that were safe, that were educated, and that would be able to stand on their own 2 feet. And that's what I'm hoping to give back to not only my own family, but my community. Like that we are resilient people, that you know, we can have our own dream and still be a part of the American dream, but that we've done this before and we can do it again.
And I feel like that's a common thread throughout the those that make up this America. Nobody wanted to stay where they were. The ancestral and current dreams, for the most part, are about improvement. And I think about the theme song from the Jeffersons. It's about moving on up. It's about moving from good times to the Cosby Show. It's about the next generation working smarter and not harder. And I applaud those people who have been able to hold on to their culture, but I also think about what comes with holding on to your culture, what comes with speaking your native language when you're out in the community. It can make people of the popular culture feel threatened and uncomfortable. And I laugh to myself because I feel like the discomfort comes from not knowing whether or not a revolution is being planned. If I know what you're saying, then I know what my next move can be. But if you're speaking in a native tongue that I don't understand, I can't forecast your move. And if I can't forecast your move, you might be able to one up me. So I need to be able to control your movement. And if I know what you're saying, I can control your movement. Sounds a little like a conspiracy theory, but haven't we seen the popular culture try to dictate how much of your culture they want to be exposed to?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I kind of have to think of, this theme we're talking about, the dream. I kind of wonder what made us, in terms of immigrants, what made us think that we had to leave to achieve a dream?
Mm,
Why
wow.
did we not stay in place and try to build the dreams on our own terms, our own land? Why did we not fight and, rebuild what we already had? Why did we have to step into someone else's dream?
Wow. Wow. That's good. That's good, Kyra.
Like
That's a
what
power.
barriers are in place that, and we know, just if you're up on world events and stuff, we can see that, places in Latin America, on the continent of Africa and stuff like that, we can see the turmoil and the war and the famine and stuff like that. But I just wonder what made us think we had to make these long, difficult journeys to step. into some other dream that we haven't touched, but we've heard of and we've seen on TV, but like what didn't make us pick up arms and fight back?
Mm.
Like what made us think we had to make this long, long, exhausting journey, not knowing what's going to happen to us, and then step into this dream, which may now be a nightmare to some because they're being rounded up
Mm.
and sent back to that nightmare.
Wow.
So it's so much, I think, built into that American dream. I think, why call it American dream? Why not just call it life? Why not just saying the life that I want, or,
Mm.
the good life? That's another ideal. But would we call it a dream when you built so much and you have all these laws, you have all these legislations, you have all these rights and stuff put in place, only to see them carefully being rolled back and taken away. So is it a dream? And if it is a dream, whose dream? Is it to protect those in power, to retain that power?
Well, that is definitely something really big to ponder. Like on the most basic level, why is it called a dream? Because dreams aren't something that we do every day. A dream is something that may or may not be attainable.
Hmm.
So I guess that's the root of the American dream. Depending on who you are and what your circumstances are and what your background is and your socioeconomic status, maybe you can achieve the American dream. And maybe you just keep going to sleep hoping.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, in closing, at the end of the day, the American dream might not be one size fits all. Maybe it's as unique as the people who pursue it. And I think you need to ask yourself, what does success feel like? Not just look like? What sacrifices am I willing or not willing to make? And how does my dream connect to the people who came before me?
So I want to challenge anybody that's listening to this podcast to really sit down and write down what the American dream means to you individually, not to your parents, not based on social media, not based on what popular culture says your American dream should be, but to really sit with yourself and say, what is my dream? How can you make space for others and yourself to reach their version of the dream? And then maybe, just maybe, the real dream is about choice, the freedom to live in a way that honors your values, your well being, your legacy, your true, authentic self.
Definitely. And we love to hear your thoughts. You can email us at rootedinpodcast@gmail.com or connect with us on social media. We have Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And until next time,
Remember, our dreams are rooted in the sacrifices of those before us. Let's keep building.
and we are your hosts, Cara and Teresa. And until next time,